What if I told you that the soil, the fertilizer, the fancy potting mix, the drainage holes, the watering schedule, none of it is actually required to grow genuinely beautiful houseplants? What if the cleanest, simplest, most low-maintenance garden you've ever had is sitting one glass jar away from you right now? There are 15 plants, real, stunning, proven plants that don't just survive in plain water, they thrive in it. Some of them root faster in water than they ever would in soil. Some of them will outlive potted versions of themselves by years. And one of them, the very last one I'm going to show you, you can start with something sitting in your kitchen right now. No nursery trip, no spending a dime, and it'll grow trailing vines so lush they'll fill an entire window. This isn't a gardening hack. This is how plants were grown long before the nursery industry convinced us we needed bags of soil and bottles of feed to keep anything alive. Today, at Golden Vault Garden, we're going back to basics, and the results are going to surprise you. Let's go through all 15. I'm ordering these from impressive to genuinely jaw-dropping, so stay with me because the back half of this list is where it gets really good.
Plant 1. Pothos, Epipremnum aureum. We start with Pothos, and before you say I already know this one, hear me out, because most people have never seen what Pothos actually becomes when it's grown in water long-term. This trailing vine with heart-shaped leaves, solid green, golden yellow, or marbled white, depending on variety, is so adaptable it earned the nickname Devil's Ivy. The reason? It refuses to die. College students have left Pothos cuttings in glasses of tap water for weeks at a time, completely forgotten, and come back to find them thriving. Here's why. Pothos develops what are called specialized water roots, structurally different from soil roots, built specifically to pull oxygen and nutrients directly from water. Drop a cutting with at least one node into a jar. Within a week, you'll have visible roots. Within a month, a root system that looks like an underwater forest. Pro tip: change the water every 1 to 2 weeks to keep it fresh and oxygenated. That's the entire care routine. Pothos is your gateway into water culture. Once you see how effortlessly it grows in a glass, everything else on this list becomes believable.
Plant number 2, Lucky Bamboo, Dracena sanderiana. Lucky Bamboo might be the most honest plant on this list because it's never pretended to need soil at all. Walk into any garden center and you'll find it already growing in water, in decorative containers filled with pebbles. Those pebbles aren't for nutrition, they're just there to hold the stalks upright. The plant itself has spent centuries growing in water in homes across Asia, chosen for its symbolism of good fortune and prosperity. It asks for nothing more. That's because Lucky Bamboo, which is actually not bamboo at all, but a member of the Dracena family, evolved along riverbanks where its roots stay permanently submerged. It's not adapting to water culture, it was built for it from the start. Stalks live for years in the same container, continuously pushing out new leaves and growing taller. Keep the water level consistent over the roots. Change it every 2 to 3 weeks. Use filtered water if your tap is heavily chlorinated. That's it. You're not tending a plant, you're maintaining a living sculpture.
Plant number 3. Heartleaf Philodendron, Philodendron hederaceum. If Pothos is the gateway plant, Philodendron is what convinces you to never go back. The Heartleaf Philodendron produces trailing vines covered in glossy, deep green heart-shaped leaves that look like they belong in an expensive interior design shoot. And it roots in water faster and more reliably than almost any tropical plant you can name. Take a cutting with a node, drop it in a clear glass of water, and within days, you'll see root nubs forming. Within 2 weeks, a root system. Within a month, new leaves actively unfurling. What makes this permanent, not just a propagation trick, is that philodendrons develop full, robust water root systems that can sustain the plant indefinitely. These aren't transitional roots waiting for soil. These are the plant's permanent home. Pro tip: use a clear glass container. Watching the root system develop below the waterline is half the experience, and it tells you instantly when the water needs changing.
cascade it from a shelf, let it climb a support. Either way, this plant in water will outperform the same plant in a pot on almost every measure that matters.
Plant number 4, spider plant, Chlorophytum comosum. Spider plants come with a built-in feature that makes them almost unfairly easy to grow in water. They produce their own babies.
Mature plants send out long, arching stems with clusters of tiny plantlets, miniature versions of themselves, each with tiny root nubs already started. These babies are essentially designed by nature to drop into water and start growing immediately. Place a plantlet with even the smallest visible root nubs into a glass of water. Within a week, those roots will have tripled in length. You can measure visible progress every single day. Grow them long enough, and they'll produce their own babies, and the cycle repeats forever. A self-propagating collection that costs you nothing after the first plant. Change the water weekly. Provide bright, indirect light. Watch your collection multiply on its own timeline with no effort from you at all.
Plant number 5, peace lilies, Spathiphyllum. Most people kill peace lilies with kindness, overwatering them in soil until root rot sets in. Growing them in water eliminates that problem entirely. Peace lilies grow naturally on tropical forest floors where the soil stays consistently, permanently moist. That preference translates beautifully to water culture. Transition one from soil by gently washing every trace of soil from the roots, then placing it in water, and changing it every few days for the first couple of weeks as old root material breaks down. New water roots establish within weeks, and from that point, the plant simply thrives. Here's the payoff. Those elegant white blooms, the spathes that made this plant famous, will continue to appear even in water culture once the plant is established. This is the plant that proves water growing isn't just for trailing vines. It supports genuine elegance. Pro tip: keep the roots submerged, but leave the crown above the waterline. Never let the base of the leaves sit in water.
Plant number 6, Chinese evergreen, Aglaonema. If Pothos gives you greenery and Philodendron gives you elegance, Chinese evergreen gives you art. These plants produce leaves painted in combinations of silver, pink, red, cream, and green, patterns that look hand-designed. And despite being tropical plants that typically live in soil, they adapt remarkably well to water culture. Their toughness, the same quality that lets them survive dark corners and inconsistent watering, makes them resilient water growers. Stem cuttings root reliably within 2 to 3 weeks. Once established, the plant grows steadily, unfurling new patterned leaves every few weeks. And here's what makes water culture actually improve this plant. Those vibrant leaf colors often intensify when the plant receives consistent moisture and adequate light, more vivid than most soil-grown specimens ever achieve. Change the water weekly, watch for any cloudiness as your signal to change sooner, and give it a spot with good indirect light. It'll reward you with foliage that looks like it belongs in a gallery. Plant number 7, English ivy, Hedera helix. English ivy has been growing on cottage windowsills and water for centuries. This is not a trend, this is a tradition. Those characteristic lobed leaves on trailing stems will climb if you give them something to grip, or cascade dramatically if you let them hang. And ivy cuttings root faster and more reliably in water than they do in soil, which is why generations of gardeners kept bottles of it on their windowsills long before anyone coined the term water propagation. Tape cuttings in spring or summer with several leaves and at least 2 nodes. Place in water, and within a week you'll see root nubs. Within 2 weeks, functioning roots. Within a month, vigorous new growth extending in every direction. Multiple cuttings in decorative glass bottles create dense, layered cascades of foliage. Change the water weekly, give it bright, indirect light. Ivy handles lower light better than almost anything on this list, which makes it one of the most versatile options for darker corners of your home. If you've made it this far and you're realizing just how simple this actually is, do one thing right now. Hit that subscribe button. At Golden Vault Garden, we put out content like this every week. Real plants, real results, no fluff.
And the next 8 on this list, they get significantly more impressive. Don't miss them.
Plant number 8, Arrowhead Plant, Syngonium podophyllum. Arrowhead plants don't just adapt to water culture, they come pre-equipped for it. Along the stems of every arrowhead plant are aerial roots, small root structures that the plant naturally produces to anchor itself to surfaces as it climbs. When you place a cutting in water, those aerial roots don't need to start from scratch. They simply activate and expand, often showing visible growth within the first 48 hours. The leaf shape shifts as the plant matures, arrow-shaped when young, then gradually developing into more complex, multi-lobed forms. Colors range from solid green to white variegated to soft pink depending on variety. Growth rate in water often exceeds what happens in soil. The consistent moisture is exactly what this plant wants. Pro tip: prune regularly to keep the shape you want. Left unchecked, arrowhead becomes a vigorous trailing vine. Beautiful, but worth managing if you're working in a small space.
Plant number 9, Silver Inch Plant, Tradescantia zebrina. We're now in the territory where water culture stops being impressive and starts being almost theatrical. The silver inch plant produces trailing stems covered in leaves striped silver and green on top, deep purple underneath, a contrast so dramatic it looks intentional. It gets its name because it can grow an inch a day under good conditions, and that speed applies to roots too. Every node along a Tradescantia stem already has visible root nubs sitting there, pre-formed, waiting. When you cut a stem and place it in water, you're not waiting for roots to form. You're watching existing structures switch on. Within 24 to 48 hours, roots. Within a week, a full root system. Within 2 weeks, active new growth above the waterline. This is the plant to show someone who doesn't believe how fast water propagation works. Set a cutting up in the morning, check back that evening, show them. They won't be skeptical anymore. Pro tip: change the water every 3 to 5 days. Fast growers cloud water quickly. And give it good light. The purple pigment in the leaves deepens dramatically with adequate brightness.
Plant number 10, Monstera, Monstera deliciosa. Yes, that Monstera. The one on every design mood board and plant Instagram account. It grows in water, long-term, beautifully. Monstera naturally produces thick aerial roots, the same roots it uses to climb trees in its native rainforest habitat. In water culture, those aerial roots transform into powerful water roots that can sustain even large specimens indefinitely. Take a cutting that includes at least 1 leaf and 1 aerial root. Place it in a large container. These are substantial plants that need room. Within weeks, the aerial root adapts and new water roots form from the nodes. The characteristic splits and holes in the leaves, called fenestrations, continue developing on new growth as long as the plant receives adequate light and nutrients. And that last word matters. Monstera is the one plant on this list that genuinely needs liquid fertilizer added to the water every 2 weeks. Without it, growth slows and new leaves emerge smaller. But get that right, and you have one of the most impressive statement plants in any room, growing indefinitely in a beautiful vase. No soil ever required.
Plant number 11, Prayer Plant, Maranta leucanura. Every plant on this list is beautiful. This one is alive in a way the others aren't. Prayer plants move. The leaves, painted with red or white veins on deep green backgrounds, fold upward at night like hands pressed together in prayer, then open again each morning as light returns. It's a behavior called nyctinisty, and it continues in water culture just as it does in soil. You get a plant that visibly responds to its environment every single day. Prayer plants naturally grow on tropical forest floors in high humidity with consistently moist soil, conditions that water culture replicates almost perfectly. The evaporating water around the roots creates a microclimate of moisture that the leaves love. Take cuttings with at least 2 leaves and several nodes. Place in bright, filtered light, never direct sun, which bleaches the color out of those striking veins. Roots develop within 2 weeks. New growth follows within a month.
each new leaf unrolling with its painted pattern fully formed. This is the plant that adds personality to a water garden, one that you'll check on each morning just to see what it's doing.
Plant number 12, Purple Heart, Tradescantia pallida. I teased this one at the beginning. Here it is. Purple Heart produces thick, succulent-like stems and lance-shaped leaves in a deep, jewel-toned purple that looks almost unreal in good light, nearly black purple in certain conditions. And when you place a cutting in water, you can see roots forming within 24 hours, not within a few days, within 1 day. Every node along a Purple Heart stem is primed to produce roots at the slightest contact with water. Set up cuttings in the morning, check back in the evening, you'll already see the beginning of root growth. By the next day, they're clearly visible. By the end of the week, you have a fully rooted plant growing vigorously. Grow multiple cuttings together in one container for a full, dramatic display. The purple color deepens with better light, one of the few plants where you can actually improve its appearance just by moving it closer to a window. Pro tip: pinch back growing tips regularly to keep plants bushy rather than long and lanky. Purple Heart will trail if you let it, but a full, compact specimen is far more striking. Plant number 13, Mint, Mentha spp. We've spent the last 12 plants talking about beauty. Now let's talk about usefulness. Mint, whether spearmint, peppermint, chocolate mint, or apple mint, roots in water with remarkable speed. And once established, it grows so vigorously that you can harvest from it continuously without ever slowing it down. Cut what you need for tea, cooking, cocktails, or garnishes. The plant responds by pushing out even more growth to replace what you took. In soil, mint is notorious for spreading and taking over gardens. In a glass jar of water on your kitchen counter, that same vigor is perfectly contained, and you get all the abundance with none of the chaos. Change the water twice weekly because mint grows fast and consumes nutrients quickly. Keep it near the brightest window in your kitchen. The proximity matters. Fresh mint you actually use lives 12 inches from where you cook it. This is a living herb garden that never needs shopping for, never wilts in the back of your fridge, and refills itself on your schedule.
Plant number 14, Basil, Ocimum basilicum. Here's something most people have never tried: buying a $3 bunch of basil from the grocery store, trimming the stems, dropping them in a glass of water by a sunny window, and turning it into a plant that produces fresh basil for months. That's not a trick. That's just how basil works. Remove the lower leaves, place the stems in water, and within a week, you'll have roots. Within 2 weeks, functioning root systems and active new growth. Each time you harvest leaves from the top, the plant branches and becomes bushier, so harvesting actually improves it. Research on basil cultivation confirms that hydroponic-grown basil often produces more essential oils and more intense flavor than soil-grown plants when given adequate light and diluted liquid fertilizer weekly. The plant you grow in a jar on your windowsill may genuinely taste better than what you buy at the store. Pro tip: change the water every 3 to 4 days. Basil leaves contain oils that cloud water faster than most plants, and give it the brightest spot you have. Basil wants real sunlight, not just indirect light. No special equipment, no complicated setup, just a jar, water, and the sunny window you already have. Plant 15, Sweet Potato Vine, Ipomea batatas. And here we are, the one that requires nothing you don't already have. Go to your kitchen, find a sweet potato, place it in a jar of water, pointy end down, about halfway submerged. Put it on your windowsill. Walk away. Within a week, roots emerging from the bottom. Within 2 weeks, sprouts appearing from the top. Within a month, trailing heart-shaped vines growing downward from the jar. Within 2 months, vines several feet long, lush and full, in colors ranging from deep green to vivid purple to delicate variegated patterns, depending entirely on which sweet potato you happen to grab. Here's what makes this almost miraculous. A sweet potato is a storage organ. It's packed with energy, specifically engineered by the plant to produce new growth. When you put it in water, you're not coaxing something reluctant, you're releasing something that was already ready to go. No fertilizer needed initially. The potato carries its own fuel supply. This is how your grandmother grew plants in winter when outdoor gardening was impossible. It worked then, and it works now. Exactly as well, with no modification required. No special variety, no equipment, just a vegetable, a jar, and a window. The vines will keep growing for months, eventually exhausting the potato, but not before delivering one of the most spectacular and effortless displays of any plant on this entire list. And it cost you nothing.
15 plants. No soil, no mess, no complicated watering schedules. Just clean containers, fresh water, and the kind of green, living beauty that used to fill every windowsill before the gardening industry convinced us it had to be harder than this. The simplest of these, sweet potato vine, pothos, mint, you can start today with what you already have. The most dramatic ones, Monstera, purple heart, prayer plant, will genuinely stop people in their tracks when they see them growing in a glass vase on your shelf. All of them belong in your home. All of them belong at Golden Vault Garden.
Drop a comment right now and tell me which of these 15 you're starting with. Are you going for the instant gratification of Purple Heart, the kitchen convenience of mint and basil, or are you going straight for the free one, the sweet potato sitting in your pantry right now? I read every comment. If this video changed the way you think about growing plants, hit the like button. It helps more people at Golden Vault Garden discover that growing beautiful things doesn't have to be complicated or expensive. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. We put out real, practical plant content every week, and I'd love to have you with us. I'll see you in the next one.